Hey Squishmallow DIYers, in this DIY Squishmallow tutorial I'm going to show you how I made my bubble tea Squishmallows. The small bubble tea measures about 7 inches high, the medium bubble tea measures about 13 inches high, and the large bubble tea measures about 18 inches high. If you want to follow along and want the patterns, definitely click on the link in the description of this video to download the patterns. You'll get the small, medium, and large patterns. The small one here doesn't need any taping together. The medium pattern and the large pattern do need to be taped together. And if you don't like taping together any patterns, I also provide for you in the download the copy shop versions for both the medium and the small. So you would tape them together like this, but again, I'll also show you the copy shop versions. Just bring it right over to any copy shop you have. They print it for you, and all you have to do is actually cut it out. So if you have any questions, go ahead and shoot me an email, and I will be glad to answer it. So for this tutorial, I'm making the medium. Doesn't matter which size you make, the directions are all the same. So you're gonna need the front body, back body, top lid, straw, bottom, and top. And for the pieces, for the details, I'm just gonna push those aside until the Squishmallow stuff. So I'm using this plush and this fleece here. So I am putting the patterns on the wrong side of the plushie, or really it's a blanket, and I'm gonna pin it down. And after I pin down, I'm gonna cut around. However you cut this out is up to you. You could even use pattern weights. Make sure to cut the markings out of your fabric pieces so that we can use them for matching later. You'll want to cut the lid pattern on the fold of the fabric so it's double its length. Loving this Squishmallow DIY tutorial? Subscribe so you can stay up to date with all my latest videos. Now my next step is to sew together all of the darts on the front and back body. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to use that same seam allowance for the entire bubble tea Squishmallow. My next step is to place the front and back bodies together, and I'm going to clip the sides together, making sure that the right sides or the good sides of your fabric are touching each other. Then with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm going to sew the sides. And you're going to stop sewing right where the curve stops there. Again, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Next, I'm going to sew the straw just like it's a pouch, all the way around, back stitching on the ends, and then I'm going to flip it around. And here we go. That was quick. And I'm just going to give it some snips here so that it turns well. And then I'm going to add a little bit of stuffing. Next, I'm going to sandwich the straw in between the top of the Squishmallow. So I want my straw doing that, so I'm gonna flip it the opposite way, and then I'm gonna pin it right into place. You can put the straw on any side you want, anywhere really you want on the top. And then I'm gonna sew around using 1/4 inch seam allowance, only around the arch here, back stitching on the ends. Now that I've created the top, I'm gonna create the lid. So I'm gonna take the lid piece and I'm gonna fold it wrong sides together so that the right sides are facing me, and I'm gonna sew all the way down the very edge of the open side. And then you're gonna just sew it across here. So now I'm gonna flip it inside out, or really the both sides are out, and at the top, so you know the top is where you don't have the seams, I'm gonna take my seam there, align it with the center back seam or the center back dart, and I'm gonna pin it right there. And then I'm gonna just fit it inside and clip it all the way around. If it doesn't fit, definitely go ahead and sew a bit more where you've attached it together to take away some of the length, but it should fit. But some fabrics may make it stretch. Now I'm gonna take the lid and I'm gonna turn it right side out just like that, and I'm gonna push it right in this way. So make sure the right sides are out. The side seams are gonna match, so I'm gonna bring all side seams together there, clip it, same thing as side seam here, and then I'm gonna fit the rest of the circumference of the lid around the rest of this opening. As for the lid, if you don't want it as high as I made mine, definitely lift it up a bit higher so that you can shorten your lid. And now I am off to the sewing machine to sew all the way around, about 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm gonna make sure I grab all 3 layers. And I do take my time with this sewing because I want to make sure everything is grabbed, everything is sewn, and there's no folds or puckers anywhere. I used fleece for the lid, so I don't mind it like this because it won't fray. But if you're using another type of fabric, definitely create your lid like this. Once you make it, okay, you're gonna turn it right side out. Then one end you're gonna fold in, and then you're gonna take the other end, then you're gonna fold it into the finished edge, and then you'll sew all the way around so you have a nice clean edge. Next, I'm going to sew on the bottom of the boba tee. So I made little slits and cuts instead of the points because my plush was just not behaving with me. And I'm gonna match them up with the side seams of the boba tee. So first I clip those into place. And then just like I did with the lid, I'm gonna fit the rest of the rounded edge around the edge of the boba tee bottom, all the way around. Now I'm going to sew all the way around, leaving an opening so I can stuff in it. At the opening, I am definitely going to backstitch so it does not fall apart as I'm stuffing. Again, I go really slow here, making sure I don't catch any of the boba tee body under this seam. Looking cute so far, and like I always say, for the funnest part, stuffing the Squishmallow. So once you get it stuffed to a point that you like, go ahead and use a coordinating thread. I like to use a double threaded needle, and I close it up with just a simple crossover stitch. There's no need for a blind stitch here because the plush is so forgiving, and after I just run my fingers over it and it just really hides my stitching. Make sure at the end you do some end off stitches just like I do, and notice how I hide the end of the thread into the plush. I like to use felt for all my pieces, and I also like to add all of the extra details once my Squishmallow is stuffed. So instead of black felt, I'm going to use a black polyester and then the felt for the rest of the pieces. The polyester I really love because it doesn't fray. So I'm going to do that for the eyes and nose. And I'm going to fold this 3 times for the boba bubbles so that I cut once and get 3 pieces. Why not, right? Be efficient. Before I sew any piece in place, what I do is I place them all on just to see where I want what piece where, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to place them all on like this, and then I'll start sewing the face details first, like the eyes and mouth, I mean. When sewing on the face details, I do like to use a back stitch. Unlike a running stitch, you move backwards before you move front. So you make a regular stitch just like I did, and before you move forward, you just back up into that space that you made before. So before I move forward, I back up into that space, and now I move forward. And with the same back stitch, I'm going to attach the flower. So I'm going to use the back stitch just around the center of the flower, the pink part. And as I'm going down with the needle, I make sure I grab, of course, the plush and the fleece under. So I move forward and then I go back into the space I left. So a running stitch leaves a space in between each stitch, but with a back stitch, before you move forward, you close that open space. So it's like you're drawing with your thread. You're kind of making a straight line instead of dotted, dashed stitches. I'm going to trim the petals here a little bit just to make them rounder and nicer. And you'll notice if you pull the petal a little, it does stretch and it is pliable. And that's how I make my bubble tea squishmallows. So if you really enjoyed this squishmallow tutorial, go ahead and click on the other squishmallow tutorials right up here on the screen. Thanks for watching.